on in, have a seat. Howdy. How are you? Come on in. I knew you was gonna be here.
My wife wanted to come, but she got a few lesson
Come
appointments.
find you a seat. We got plenty of seats there.
So what is your name? Vicky? Vicky.
Good.
Yes. What's your last name? Okay, and I'm Peggy. And what's your last name? Swanson. Okay, yes.
Okay, we about ready to get started.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we're gonna do a couple announcements before we get started because we know that once Linnea is done, y'all will run out the room. Come on in, we're getting started. Thank you. Karen, do you have an announcement? I know the teaching garden has an announcement too. So the first, go ahead, Karen.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's good to see you here. We're trying to cool this room down. It's getting a little warm with hot interest building up here. Welcome. I see some new faces. That's great. Hope everybody signed in. And did everybody get a little red ticket? Because we're going to have some drawings after this. Anybody need a ticket? Great. We're so happy to see you here for Linnea Weatherly's presentation on herbs and probably more. We do have, the Garden Club meets monthly and does a presentation or an activity. Want you to know that next month the activity is going to be on November 16th, which is the same day as the library yard sale. And we're going to be doing, maybe somebody else has a better explanation, we're going to be creating pots and planting succulents. So you will walk away with a little gifty thing. So watch if you put your information on the email list, you'll get more details about that. And we also have, we're planning a social in December.
Sheila's gonna talk about that.
Okay, good deal. Okay, so Sheila will talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
And I will probably not speak to you again because I have to dash out for another appointment right before the end. So Denise and Sheila will take care of you.
Yeah, great, thank you. Hey, guys, welcome. Hi. Hi. Oh, you're a new friend. Good to see you guys. We are so excited. I don't know if y'all been to High Street. Turn to go to Bandero, that could be left. And where the gasoline station says gas is not always cheap. But anyway, right underneath there's a building, Monte Alteza. Might be mispronounced. It's a neat little, it's a full bar with really neat like appetizer things, and they have said they will open their doors on the day that's closed normally for a private gathering for us. So that will be December 10th. It'll be a reception that's going to honor our donors, our presenters, volunteers, and members. So more details are coming, but put December 10th, 2 to 3:30 in the afternoon. We get to dress up slightly. Just a little bit. And they're going to be serving appetizers, really fancy, neat, good stuff. Plus dessert, tiramisu. How can you go wrong? They will have a cash bar. So we will have an RSVP list. We must tell them how many we want to have. So that RSVP will be November 26th. So keep watching, and we'll send you more information as it gets closer. But we're really excited about this. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And the only other announcement, come on in, there's plenty of chairs. The only other announcement we have is starting in the new year, and you'll notice this last couple of meetings, we actually switched to doing the third Saturday just because of Thanksgiving and other things going on, early voting. And so beginning in the new year, we're going to actually switch to the third Saturday because we're actually conflicting with less things. But we'll be sending out, whenever you get your emails, you know, I try to send out 2 or 3 future things so that you can get them on your calendar, right? And be prepared to help out. The last thing I would say is we're starting a new year. You know, we've got folks that have been serving on our executive committee for a little while and doing a lot of the work. We've got some people doing 2 or 3 jobs on the executive committee. So if anybody is willing to come in and help with the executive committee. When you can just reply to the email. We have executive committee meetings on Wednesdays. Before the first Wednesday of the month is when we have executive committee, and it's usually in the morning about 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, depending on what's going on. And so if you're wanting to look to maybe get more involved and help get some of these projects that Sheila and others are working, like the teaching garden, done, just shoot us an email up to the LLGC Executive Committee at gmail.com. But you'll get email from me generally about programs and other things. Just write back and say, hey, I'd like to serve on things. So anyway, that's it, and without further ado, Karen will introduce our speaker. Come on in, this chair's right up here.
For filming, the window was in the way. So I'm trying to move over to darkness so they can film without us being just completely a shadow.
Is that gonna be
So,
okay? Is that
yeah,
okay
I was
for you?
thinking if I just checked my cord, that I'd move it a little bit more over this way.
And in the meantime, I feel so discombobulated today, I'm looking for my phone.
You want me to call
I
it?
think you can. There you go. Is that last chair open over there?
Yes, and there's two more here. I can
Okay.
move over.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to call it?
Sorry, excuse me.
One more or?
Well, Linnea is one of our favorite speakers. She's a master herbalist, master gardener.
Sorry.
Correct me when I'm wrong, this is off the top of
Oh,
my head.
you know,
Master herbalist,
I
master
wouldn't call
gardener.
myself Master Gardener at all.
Master herbalist.
But good one, not master. I don't have that certification.
She has lots of expertise in so many hands-on things. She lived off-grid here in Pipe Creek for decades.
11 years.
11 years. So we rely and appreciate her expertise and her vast knowledge.
Thank you so much. Anytime you guys know, because you're here, anytime you can talk about plants, that's a good day. So welcome, I'm glad you're all here. We did have this presentation scheduled to be on the big board for you, but things happen. So you can, I know they posted, they're going to film it today, so we moved it in front of the black background here so it wouldn't be in front of the window. And you can get it on their YouTube channel or however it is you guys send out the link. Also, those of you who've been at the other one that we did, the community center, you have my email, you can request, I think it's Herbal 2023, I'm not really sure what it is, so, yeah, you can ask her and I'll send it to her. I'll send it to the committee for the garden club here, and then you guys can use it, and then I can just email it to you. That way you don't have to worry about taking copious notes, you can just kind of enjoy. Today what we're doing, I was asked to do a talk on herbal teas with a few things thrown in about herbs in food and stevia, a sweetener stevia. So that's what we're gonna go over. My area of expertise is medicinal herbs, but of course, medicinal teas aren't like social teas. They're not like, oh, have another cup. They're medicinal. So we're going to go over things that you're familiar with. Also have a list on the presentation of wild things that you can pluck flowers from or leaves from and make teas. You don't have to go buy them. And if what you want to know about's not in that list, I don't know about it. So Google whatever, learn whatever. This picture is important, if you could see this one, because everything is in glass. I'm a firm believer that plastic should never have been extracted, well, not never, but plastic leaches into liquids. So we don't want to make teas in plastic. You don't want to pour them in plastic cups. You don't want to use plastic pitchers. You want to use ceramic. You want to use, that's why they had pictures of all these beautiful things, you know, the beautiful teapots. They are safer for the tea. They don't leach chemicals and things we don't want in our system. So glass is really good, porcelain's great, stainless steel is good enough. So that's important for your kitchen if you're going to be making teas. Okay, let's learn how to do this here. So, that's just the title. So we're gonna start off with fresh versus dried herbs. How do you know which one to use in a tea, or how to put it into your food, etc.? So it's very simple, actually. You use fresh or tender, what they call tender herbs. Like basil's a tender herb. It's not a woody herb. It's not gonna grow into a semi-bush like thyme can. Okay? So you use tender herbs, although thyme is a tender herb. When the recipe's not cooked. Because just look at these. I mean, if you just touch them and smell them, can you imagine what it would be like to be one of these and get cooked? Ooh, no. So that's what happens. You destroy what's in them. They're too gentle. So you add them at the end of cooking if you want fresh flavor. Do all your cooking first, then you can chop these up and add these, or you can eat them. Put them on the side as like a little, what do you call it? Like a little sprinkle. You can sprinkle them into your food like that. So when you're not going to cook, so that would be salads, that would be dressings, that would be dips. You just chop them up and put them in. Usually we don't do the stem. Usually we take the stem off. Usually we just pluck the leaves, and also we usually just take the top third of the plant. So with basil, that's really efficient because every time you take the top third, boing, it sprouts out 2 more. So you get a basil bush instead of a basil stalk. And the same thing is true with your mints. Every time you cut them, you're gonna get 2 more sprouts, so it'll bush everything out. So here are just some ideas for you. What we call the tender herbs are parsley, tarragon, chives, dill, cilantro, basil, and thyme. It's almost a no-brainer, right? But people still buy these dried in the grocery store and think they're doing a great thing by sprinkling into their food. I'm eating herbs. They're like flavorless, and they also only last a year. These leaves, when you dry them or dehydrate them, when they start losing their color, they're losing their goodness, what's inside of them, and their flavor. And you probably all know old herbs taste like dust, they just have no flavor. All right, so some of the things I like to play around with when I'm doing herbs is herb butters. So chopping any of these, absolutely any of these here, the mints, the lemongrass even, the basil, the cilantro, the thyme. This one is just honey thyme butter, and there's nothing to it. You just let your butter get soft, and you chop up your herbs, and you just mash them in together, and then you put your butter back in the refrigerator and let it harden again. It's that simple. So you can put it in molds, that make a little shape, or you can keep it in a stick, or you can pat it down into a square like the farmers do, the farmer butter. It's that simple. And then another one here is fig, cheese, and mint toast. So mint is a wonderful combination to go with fig. And you actually, depending on actually what little canyon or dip you live in out here, you can grow fig trees, and they can survive the freeze. So you just have your fresh figs and combine them with mint in any way that you want to, just have mint tea when you have your figs. This next one is very familiar, dill potato salad. Okay, so that's just a good example of how we do dill. And if you've never really had the dill flavor in potato salad, you've probably been using dried dill. Blah. You're gonna learn once you learn the freshness of herbs. Now all these herbs right here, if I wanted to have fresh herbs during the wintertime, these have to live inside. They're not gonna make it in the freeze. You probably already know that. Okay, this is an idea of a minty fruit drink. The thing I love to put the most is any of my mints, but also basil in tea, any kind of tea you make. Doesn't matter whether it's store-bought tea, whether it's green tea, white tea, oolong tea, rooibos tea, whatever you've done with tea, doesn't matter. You can just put them right in not as a garnish. It'll look like a garnish, but actually what you're doing whenever you put an herb into water, the constituents in an herb are water soluble. So the water starts leaching them out. So you start adding flavor. And of course, the longer you do that, the more flavorful the water becomes. We call that an infusion. So when we're talking about teas, we call them herbal teas on purpose because there is a plant called the tea plant, Camellia sinensis. That's what white tea and black tea and green tea all come from. And they're black or white or green tea according to how they're processed, how the leaves are processed, or what particular leaves on that plant are used. So if you say you're going to have a cup of tea, literally you're talking about leaves from that plant. So in my presentation, I have tea in quotes because I didn't want to write herbal every single time, but we say herbal tea and then you know. So like this, for instance, rooibos, this is one of my extremely favorite teas, and it's not a tea, it's an herbal tea. This is a leaf from Africa, and I'm gonna pass this one around just so you have the joy of the scent. It's just right for this season. Pumpkin spice rooibos. I always call it rooibos, but it's rooibos.
Where do you buy those?
Grocery store, HEB,
Okay.
online. Yeah.
Renee,
Smell it? Nice. Yeah.
could we grow this herb here in Texas?
I'm going out on a limb here because I haven't done it yet. I've noticed that most everything that flourishes in Africa flourishes here, especially the yellow bells, you know, the Esperanza plant. If you have them where the deer don't get them, they just thrive here, and that's from Africa. So yeah, that's a great idea. I never thought about doing that. Okay, so that's an herbal tea, so you can get that in the store. This is one of the few that I find that still has some flavor left in it and some goodness left in it. Okay, so minty fruity drink, any fruit drink you make, whether you made a smoothie for breakfast, throw a handful of mint leaves in there and grind it up. And then brush your teeth because you'll have little green pieces in between them. The next one here is, so a mint lime cold infusion. So throw some mint. You don't have to squeeze the lime either. You can just let it sit. You know, just put it in a bottle in the refrigerator or on your counter for 4 hours. Let that water pull the flavors out. And these are delicate. So if your tongue has been corrupted by a lot of other things that are processed, perhaps, it may not taste the delicacy of this. But once you start dropping some of the processed things out of your diet, you're going to realize there's a whole new world of flavor you've been missing because those chemicals and the processed foods were messing with your taste buds. So you just sit it in there, just let it float. This next one is herbed ice cubes. I don't do it often because I don't have guests often, but you can, when you fill up your ice trays, if you don't have an automatic refrigerator, automatic freezer, fill up your ice trays, just drop leaves of your favorite herbs into the ice tray. Let them freeze. They're beautiful when they're in your glass. I also don't drink much that's cold. The body kind of has a propensity to prefer room temperature water or the warmer waters. And one of the reasons, I'll stop for just a second here. One of the reasons that we boil water is because water has a surface tension to it. So you guys being in the hill country, you've all seen water striders, right? These look like little spiders with these little legs that just glide and hop and jump across the water surface. They can only do that because there's tension on the water. There's a tension. So it makes it like a floor. So when you boil water, that tension disappears, which means when you put something in the boiled water, the water can reach into it more effectively. It's wetter is what we call it. It sounds a dumb term, but it's wetter water. So that's one reason for boiling. Another thing is in the morning, if you boil water And then give yourself a cup of water that's half filled with just room temperature water. And then pour your boiling water into that room temperature water. You've made a drink without needing any herbs. That's called yin yang drink. And what that does is that balances your whole system first thing in the morning if you drink yin yang water. You don't even need these beauties. Okay, here we have mint lemonade. You've probably all seen that one. You've probably all done that one. And then avocado and cilantro, of course, are a fabulous combination. We live in Texas and South Texas, and we all know about that. But, you know, for those people that might be seeing this that don't, we want to let them know how awesome we are that we know this is a good combination. Okay. The next one is basil arugula pesto. So arugula is a kind of a green, you know, a spicy kind of a lettuce. You want to hold this for a picture? That's good. Y'all can take any of these pictures you want. I'll even smile. Basil, we're so used to knowing that we can do pesto with basil, but you can do it with any herb at all, and you can do it with any nut at all, and you don't have to add the cheese if you're vegan, so it still works out. And then, of course, tarragon vinegar is on here, but everybody knows about herbal vinegars, and they're real simple. Like if I wanted to make a vinegar, I just cut this stalk off right here, this beautiful basil, and I get a jar that doesn't look like this. It looks like a vinegar jar, and I put apple cider vinegar in it, and I put the basil in it and close it down. That's it. That's another infusion. So the alcohol and water content in the vinegar is going to extract the basil flavor into it. Now I brought this jar because HEB now carries these. You've seen them. I bought it for the jar. I didn't care what was in it. Oh my God, it's fucking like this.
They charge you $2 extra for the jar and sprouts. It's like, that's what
Yeah.
I want to do.
Get this jar. So it's really nicely tight. And what I would do with it is if I were going to make an infusion, for instance, let's see, let's move you over here. If I were going to make an infusion, I wanted some mint tea, okay? So I'm going to take my mint and just put it in there. And probably I'd fill my jar with it. I'd fill my jar with mint. And then I fill this with my good, excellent filtered water, and then put the lid on and let it sit. Now, if you want it faster, sun tea, you put it out in the sun, okay? And if you don't, just leave it on the counter. Now, these things can go bad kind of quickly. That's the thing about herbs, infusions, and teas. They don't generally last longer than about 3 days, at least here. In Texas weather, sometimes they last 24 hours if you leave them out on your counter. Then they get sort of soury, but they usually last in the refrigerator at least 3 days. Okay, so next. All right, these are just suggestions. If you want to take a picture, I can read them to you because these are just ideas of things you can do with your herbs. So you can have blueberries, basil, and goat cheese. You can have a feta cheese dip with mint, a melon ball. I nearly always, as long as I have mint, anytime there's melon or fruit, mint goes in the bowl. But also basil and mint make a great combination. So chop up your basil and put some in. Strawberry basil margarita for those who want something a little more liquid. Dill cheese spread. We already know tarragon goes great with green beans, but tarragon pesto is even better. I'm not a really good grower of tarragon. I find it kind of finicky, but maybe some of you will have better luck. Coleslaw with the cilantro lime dressing. We mentioned something like that earlier. And then another infused water is to take any fruit, but pineapple's a great one for summertime. If you just put slices of pineapple in this fabulous bottle from HEB and put mint in with it, and or basil or tarragon, fill it with water, let it sit. Now keep that, because it's pineapple, keep that one in the refrigerator. You have a really cool and flavorful summertime drink. That's got a lot of vitamin C in it too, by the way. Let's see, there's a tomato, mozzarella, arugula salad. That's kind of like, oh, everybody knows about that. But you need, and they add in the basil, but I like to add in the tarragon. That's like probably my favorite herb. It's a cross between basil and tarragon, but tarragon usually wins. Beet salad with vinegar and mint. That's it. That's all of our culinary lesson for that. That's fresh foods. Now we're gonna go to cooked. Okay, so when you're cooking with herbs, you want to use the woodier herbs. So woody herbs are like oregano, thyme, marjoram, rosemary. What we mean by woody is the stem. The stem gets thick. Now, taking a look at this thyme right here, I'll pass it around. You can tell it's not, doesn't look like it's woody here. But if you look down at the bottom, you'll see it looks like a really woody little bushy stem because it is going to grow big and bushy. And again, when we're using it, we're still using the top third. So we're still pinching that off. So when you're going to dry this, you don't usually, I mean you can, it's not going to like ruin something if you don't. Usually you just cut the top third off and that's what you dry or dehydrate. And then just let it keep growing. Shave it again. And of course, you know rosemary, if any of you grow rosemary, well, it just loves to be cut. The more you cut off the tops, the more it sprouts out and the more it grows. So the herbs seem to like it. You seem to enjoy it. Oh, you want more? Sure, I'll give you more. Okay, so our cooked herbs are going to go in sauces, stews, soups, omelets, and breads. And we know that drying herbs changes their flavor. Usually it makes it more piquant, deeper, you know, a more robust flavor. And so that's why we can cook with it, because it takes a while to extract that flavor and deepen that flavor. I stopped on fennel seed. Fennel seed's not woody, it's a seed, but still we crush that. And if you like anything licoricey, fennel seed's gotta be a favorite of yours. Curry leaf, bay leaf, and sage. So what's the conversion if you're gonna do fresh? You've got a recipe and they don't know about fresh and they've written everything in dried and you're gonna add your fresh. What do? Okay, it's 1 to 3. So if the recipe calls for a teaspoon of dried, you're gonna use 3 teaspoons of fresh. If it calls for 3 teaspoons of fresh, you can use 1 teaspoon of dried. Not really, because if it calls for fresh, it doesn't want the dried, but that's how you do the conversion. Okay, 1 to 3. Okay, when you are chopping up dried rosemary, you want to, it's one of the few, like if, I could actually put my whole basil leaf in there, or my cilantro leaf, but when you get to rosemary, you really need to cut the little needles. You need to cut them into little pieces. So, as much as I cook them, if I do cook with them, I don't usually get that pointy tip with the rosemary gone. Nobody in my family likes eating it. What do you put in here, Mom? Chop them up.
Is it time?
This is just pretty much, I'm sure it's already in your brain and nothing new, but this is to tell you what herbs kind of go with what foods. So rosemary, sauces, anything with tomatoes, spinach, mushrooms, and roasted meats. For sage, everybody knows it goes in Italian sausages, but I don't think we do Italian sausages. I don't make sausage, so I'm a vegetarian. So I don't know if you guys make sausages. You want to be sure that you put sage in there. Dressings, like Thanksgiving dressing, cheeses, apples, wonderful plate with cheeses and apples and saging on it. Squashes. Raw sage is slightly bitter. I don't like bitter. That's why I can't even say the word. And peppery. So cooking helps mellow its flavor. Thyme for lamb, poultry, eggs, tomatoes, soups and stews. Oregano, tomato-based sauces and pizza, of course. That's in everybody's mouth, of course. Bay leaves, Italian cuisine, soups, stocks, and sauces. But again, like rosemary, remove the leaf after you cook it. Don't leave it in your soup or your stew or your veal. Fennel seeds, great for baked goods and cookies. And they're wonderful if your teeth allow you to chew them. They're great little breath fresheners, you know. Just pop a few fennel seeds and chew on it for a while. Fabulous. for digestion. Marjoram, meat, stews, sauces, marinades, and rubs. Okay, now let's go to herb tea basics. Seems to me everybody would like to know how to make their own teas. So, it's really simple to make your own tea. Number one, what's the primary herb? You need a primary herb. What's the purpose of your tea? Just because it's going to taste good, or it's going to be medicinal, or you have a lot of it. So what's the primary purpose? Then you choose secondary herbs, and they're going to support the purpose. So if your flavor is the purpose, that's why you're making the tea, just to have something tasty to drink, then you're going to get herbs that will add to the flavor. And of course, by then you don't need the accent herb because that's for the flavoring. So a sweetener is always optional. If anything gets sweetened in my house, we use date palm sugar or stevia or honey. And the honey is always raw. And we stop for a second here and give you a little, I didn't bring a spoon. What? Did I bring a spoon? Well, we'll pretend. When you add honey, you want the water to already have been mellowed from boiling for a while because you don't want to kill the vitamins, minerals, enzymes that make honey so awesome. For those of you who don't know, honey was dug up in a tomb in Egypt, and it was still viable because people who couldn't be embalmed could be covered with honey, and honey has no water in it. So raw honey has no water in it, and bacteria thrives on moisture. So the bodies were still good, and gross to say, honey was still good. They actually used it. Anyway, fun extras. We'll talk about stevia in a little while. Fun extras about tea basics. Once you've made your tea, add whatever you want to it. You know, throw in some blueberries, or throw in some strawberries, or throw in some rose petals, or put in essential oil that's edible essential oil, 1 drop usually. Lime slices, berries, dried fruits, spices. If the purpose is I want to enjoy what I'm drinking, be imaginative, be creative. All right, so here are some imaginative recipes that aren't very imaginative because I don't like a whole lot of herbs, particularly when I'm drinking them. Okay, this one right here, this is called Tulsi. I pronounce it Tulsi. I don't know if that's correct or not, but it is caffeine free. It comes from this particular one is grown in India, but it's also grown in South Africa, I think, as well. So this is a, dare I use the word miracle herb? It is a go-to herb. In India, this is a daily thing that you drink for anything. Anything that's going on, this is the herb they go for. I start my day with it. This is what it looks like made in the tea. This is this tea with this leaf in it. Because if you haven't had just basil leaves floated in water that's been boiled and cooled a little while, you are missing a treat if you like basil. Just basil, nothing else in it. So I added to this like other people would add sugar or something. So this is a fabulous one. So this is what this recipe here is using holy basil is its nickname, holy basil. And you can secondarily, you can add the flowers of chamomile. So this is chamomile. Oh, looky here. This is, came off. You can take it home and root it. Actually, it smells like mint, so I'm not going to pass it around because it's been hanging in the mint. But this is what chamomile looks like when you're growing it. And it's very delicate. You use the flowers of it. They have white petals and a yellow middle, and when you pick them to dry them, the white flowers just sort of shrivel up this way. You don't really see them much, and it's mostly just these big, beautiful mounds of yellow centers of the flowers. But this is a sleepy time herb and a gentle, relaxing herb. So if you're stressed out at all, chamomile is a good one to grow or to have on hand dried. We mostly use chamomile dried. So this was 3 teaspoons of this, the dried holy basil. That was for stress relief, okay? So that's my first purpose. My purpose is to relax. So then my secondary herb is the chamomile, okay? Because it is also for relaxation. So I'm gonna add the two together. And then my accent herb, I want something a little bit lemony. Well, lemon balm is what I have in this recipe, 2 to 3 teaspoons of lemon balm, because it's also not just lemony, it's good for muscle spasms and cramps. So it also adds to the relaxation of the body, right? So how do I make that tea? First of all, I take all those quantities that I mentioned to you and I put them in a jar. So they're all blended together. And then usually I'm only gonna make a cup at a time. So I'm gonna take a teaspoon because that's the generic amount in making teas, unless you're doing something medicinal. It's the generic amount is 1 teaspoon of dried herb or 3 teaspoons fresh herb to 1 cup of boiled water. Now this one, because these are dried herbs, I can actually just pour the boiling water right over the herbs. Don't put the water in the pot I boiled the herbs in. That's why they invented teapots. So they invented teapots so that you boil your water, your herb is already in here. And so when you boil the water, that takes a little, the water's already looser, right? So we've gotten rid of the water tension. Now we don't want it to be so hot that it scalds everything beyond recognition. We want it to just go in there. Now, one of the things they did also is you've often seen teaspoons sitting in pots or cups, right? And you think, oh, that's just to stir the tea. Well, actually, what do we call that? A hack? It's a tea hack. Now, when you put the metal in and you pour your boiling water over it, that metal takes away some of the heat. So it's not so stressful on the herbs and you're getting more of your herbs instead of, the hot water destroying some of their elements. So then of course this is called steeping. Steeping is where you put the lid on something and you let the herbs sit in there before you drink them. Now yes, some steam will escape here, so if you're a purist, little cotton ball, a little cork or something, right there. Or you can use something like this. You can use a mug that has its own lid, which is a pretty cool way to do it. I don't always strain everything out. Sometimes I just let it sink to the bottom and then just drink, and then don't drink all the stuff on the bottom. How'd y'all like the smell of that? That was pretty good. Robots.
Linnea, I think she had a question.
Oh, I don't know if there's gonna be a question time, if we should hold on.
Ask it right now. If it's about this,
On
definitely
the
ask
tea
it.
bags, I mean, couldn't you just put it in a tea bag? Have you ever
Could.
tried to make your own tea bags?
Yeah, I'm
or-
real messy at it, but yeah, you can. They have muslin
and then-
ones, and they
Right.
have, yeah.
Okay,
They do.
and then on the boiling, can you ever get the water too hot?
Boiling is as hot as you can get the water.
I mean, it doesn't matter
What?
as for your tea.
Like how long do you matter?
I mean, cause I know I've been just, and I forgot to bring my phone in, it's an organic tea that's got for different medicinal purposes. But I just boil my water, I go ahead and put the herbs in a tea bag. I pour the hot water, it's a stainless steel, it's like a 32 ounce cup. So I put 3 teaspoons of the tea. But, like I said, I just pour the boiling water right over that tea bag.
Excellent. I hope y'all all heard that. She got it right.
I thought maybe you.
No,
Okay.
that's fine. So when we're talking about the scary part of boiling water, it's if you're using fresh herbs.
Okay.
And also a thing about water is once you take it off the heat, it isn't boiling anymore.
No, right.
It's boiled. So it isn't boiling, it's boiled. And so it's immediately starting to cool off. And if you don't have like delicate flowers in your tea, it isn't gonna matter. If you do, wait about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, let the water cool down some, and then pour it in. It's still gonna make you a great cup of tea, and you're not gonna miss getting any of the elements out of the herbs that you want to drink. The only way you would miss it is if you are, we'll talk about that, but we'll talk about it now instead. The only way you'd miss it is if you're using barks for tea or roots for tea, like ginger, for instance. That's a root, and you do have to simmer the roots to get all of their goodness out. So yellow dock is a root. Most of the roots you'd be drinking are medicinal, so that's not a whole big part of this presentation, but you do need to boil or simmer roots. Yeah, so leaves and flowers, what you're doing is perfect. Wait a little longer if it's flowers before you pour the water. Thank you, that's a good question. Okay, so in this one, if I wanted to use ginger in this, I would have two options. So say I've made this stress relief, and let's just say it's winter time and I really want something that's warming. So I want to add ginger to it, and maybe I want a little bite to the tea. I've got a lemon flavor and maybe I want a little bite to the tea. I could just squeeze the ginger root juice right into it. I don't have to boil it because it's a root to get it in there. But if I did happen to make ginger tea, I would have cut some of the ginger into slices and put it in water and simmered it for at least 20 minutes. It'll turn the tea golden yellow to extract. And then I would pour this tea into that tea. So that's how you do it if you've got something that's not flowers, or if you're mixing flowers, leaves, and herbs. One gets prepared this way, one gets prepared this way. So tea becomes an art. It becomes something you're spending some time doing in the kitchen. And please, if you ever use microwave for this, just don't tell me, okay? Okay, now here we go. From the garden. These are from the garden herb tea recipes, and why I called it from the garden is because what's in these recipes, you can grow it. You can grow it yourself, either in a pot in your house or in your garden outside here in the hill country. So the first one, this is my favorite, 5 or more fresh basil leaves. So that's this beautiful plant here. Let's hold this up so look how gorgeous all these herbs are. Oh, yeah. So the big tall one here, this one is the basil. And I would take 5 leaves of the basil, and it is fresh. And then I would take tarragon if I happen to have some. This recipe, obviously I do. So I either have fresh or I have dried, because I'll use it either way. And then I boil a cup of water. I let the water sit for 2 to 3 minutes. Then I pour it over my herbs and cover them, right? Cover them to steep them for about 3 minutes. And then I either drink it warm or cool. Super simple, super tasty, at least to my taste buds. Okay, daily drinking. Now this is what I did with my children. We were growing up, living off grid. We had sun tea all the time. So I would fill a glass container, particularly with peppermint. I didn't add anything else to it, just peppermint. And nobody even wanted water. They all wanted the peppermint tea, and that's what we drank all summer long. Good for digestion, good for mental clarity, good for energy. So it's a great summer tea. It's good during the winter too, but it is more of a cooling herb. So we don't use it quite as often in the wintertime. Wintertime warm, speaking of wintertime, we talked about ginger root. So I will take 2 teaspoons sliced ginger root and simmer it in 2.5 cups of water. Now, when I read recipes, I go, whoa, is that boiled? I mean, is that covered or not covered? And I never can quite figure it out if they don't tell me. But this one, you know that if you only have 2.5 cups and you're gonna simmer it for 15 minutes, it's gonna evaporate, right? So you have to cover it. So that's how I figured it out. Okay, Linnea, it's a no-brainer here. Evaporates, okay, I'll have nothing, just goo on the bottom. And then I pour the ginger tea over bruised fennel. That's my secondary herb. So I take the fennels. I know, okay, you taste it already? I see you salivating. Crush those seeds and then pour it over the fennel seeds. Steep it for 10 minutes. And then I'll stir in some raw honey. After it's cooled, of course, I'll stir some raw honey to taste This also helps your digestion. It's a great digestion tea. Okay, here's a few tea tips for you. If you are going to make teas out of flowers and you happen to have them growing in your garden, like this right here, this is calendula right here. And it's a bitter tea, but it's very good for digestion and stomach issues. So if you're going to go out, you pluck your petals. So that's the part you use in calendula. You do it before, you do it before the sun gets too high in the sky, but you do it after the dew has dried, okay? And especially if you're gonna dry them, you want the dew to have dried before you bring them in to put them in your dehydrator or other way of drying them. So to make a flower tea, you boil your water, you let it cool 5 minutes, you pour it over your flowers, and this is probably where you want to use the spoon too, just to make sure it can take a little extra heat off of the flowers. And steep at least 5 minutes in a covered pot or mug. Again, no plastic. And I try to avoid metal if I can. If I can't,
Why do you do that? Why do you avoid metal?
The taste. Sometimes it
Okay.
gives a metallic taste,
Okay.
which tells me that something of the metal's getting into my drink, which may or may not be good. I can't preach to that. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So if you're not using plastic or metal, what are you using?
Glass or porcelain.
Oh, I thought wood for stirring.
You can use wood for stirring.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, if I don't have anything else around, I'll get a toothpick. Or I'll just use my finger.
It's organic.
Yeah, it's organic. All right, leaves for best results. Dry leaves for 2 weeks because they have a rigid cell membrane, and you need to dry them and or crumble them to break that membrane. But of course, if you're in a hurry for the herb and you can't wait 2 weeks, maybe you're on a ship or something, you've got some, and you need the vitamin C from it. You're just gonna grab the fresh ones and just squeeze and bruise, and that's why they tell us, if you're gonna smell an herb, you squeeze it and bruise it with your fingers because you've just broken some of the cells and it's released the scent of the herb. So the same thing for making the tea. So to make tea from leaves, you pour your boiled water over dried or somewhat crumbled leaves, and you cover and you steep it 3 to 10 minutes in a pot or a mug. What's the reason for the length of time? Why does it always vary? Well, in the medicinal world of teas, there's certain constituents that you want out of the herb that are medicinal, and it takes X amount of time for that to get out of the herb, or X amount of heat for it to come out. So we're talking today about things that are all water soluble. And so the other solvents are like alcohol. That's what they make tinctures from. So the alcohol pulls it out. Okay, so my leaf recipe here is spearmint, which, yum, yum. We're number one on okay, let's do this. Y'all can practice bruising some leaves. Just squeeze it. Smell it. Hands on. I gotta have hands on plants.
When it comes to drying the leaves,
Yes.
do you lose any benefits or anything by using a dehydrator? Or?
Not if it's really low. That's the purpose of the dehydrator, is to keep the heat really, really low. Yeah, so the lower the heat, the better. Good question. One of the things you'll see people doing is hanging them from the rafters. Well, that was great way long ago when they didn't have a lot of space and everything, but it gets dust all over your leaves. So the hydrator's great because it's blowing the air up, so you're not gonna have dust on those leaves. Yeah, so if you are gonna hang it from the rafters, at least put some covering over it just to protect it from getting dust on it. Yeah, okay, so where are we? So that was spearmint. Oh, next one. Lemongrass. This is lemongrass. Sometimes it'll come back in your yard if the freeze isn't too horrible, and sometimes it won't. But bruise some cells and have a smell. And the last one is lemon verbena, which I don't have any because they didn't have any at the store, and I don't have any growing at the moment. So that's the good yummy leaf
Is
recipe.
lemon balm, is that like an annual or is it perennial?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends. You've had,
Perennial,
yeah,
mine's a perennial.
yeah,
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
and mine died.
Oh,
but she has she has hers in a really great foresty kind of setting, you know? So it has a lot of tree protection. And
okay.
I've learned that in the wintertime, if your plants have tree protection, they can take a freeze better. They can take a freeze better if they have two things, water or a pond nearby, and they're under some trees. Yeah, and so mine were like out in the open, you know, and they were up in the air because I have these troughs on the garage. Taking all my extra space I can use to grow in.
But you're talking about leaves, do you ever do a fig leaf or an olive leaf tea?
I know that you can do fig leaf tea, but I have never done it because my fig tree died before I had a chance to harvest any leaves.
We have some.
Oh yeah, great. Okay, good. Yes, yes you can. And I've not done olive. I don't know about olive tea. Have you done olive tea?
We have.
You're still alive. Yeah.
Digestion and low blood pressure.
Yeah.
You don't drink too much of it.
Yeah, that would be because it's medicinal. Yeah, it's medicinal. You have to be careful. Yeah. Good question. Okay, so here we are on fruit. The fruits are the like seeds we would call them, but like rose hips. So if you're growing roses, the best rose hip teas come from Rosa rugosa, Rosa rubignosa, Rosa arvensis, and Rosa virginiana. So if you want the hips, so what are the hips? Let's see if I can make this picture bigger. Here we go. Okay, so this is what some rose hips look like. How do they form after the rose blooms? Not all roses make hips, and they probably do, but they're probably too small to see or even use. So rose hips are amazing quantities of vitamin C, and that's their claim to fame. So dried, people dry them, usually make dried teas out of them, but you could use them fresh as well. And then this other one, I've not ever done it, but I've recently learned about it. Turk's cap. So after they flower, they have a, I don't know what you would call it, we're gonna call it a fruit. They have a little fruit, and it's edible, it's tea worthy. So I've not done it, but I know we have some of the wild out here too, so now I'm getting ready, yeah, so are you. Getting ready to try that. Alright, so rose hips, Turk's cap, two different plants. Simmering helps the rose hips keep more of its vitamin C, and like I said, usually get the hips off the rose and spread them out and use a dehydrator for this and dry them. And so you do have to simmer them because you have to soften them up to be able to extract their vitamin C. Thanks. Was that fun? That's worth it, right?
Oh, it smells so good.
Tastes good.
Boil for 5 minutes. So simmering helps the rose hips keep more of its vitamin C. Hips are gathered from roses after they bloom. Not all roses make hips. We've gone over all that. And FYI, Turk's cap is a member of the hibiscus family. I didn't know. That's new information for me. So I have no experience with that one, but I know you guys are experimenters.
So you don't make hibiscus tea?
Oh, I do make hibiscus tea, but I've never done the Turk's cap fruit. But you know, hibiscus tea is not my favorite. I have to add a lot of other herbs in it to get the value. It has a lot of value to it. It's a really powerful tea. But it's kind of to my palate, it's kind of almost a soury lemon taste for most of the ones I taste. So I doctor them up, but I'm not like a sugar doctor. I'm like do the accent herb thing. Yeah. So yeah, lemongrass, lemon balm, little basil. My go-to stash here. Barks and roots. This is the toughest part of the plant. So it's dried and it needs vigorous boiling usually for 10 minutes. And I'm only going to talk to you about ginger today, which is a root. because most of the others that we said earlier are medicinal. Okay, so ginger, if you have sore muscles this winter, or you're achy, or you think you might be getting the flu, or anything else, you can take half of a hand size or more. You can not really overdo ginger. You can take half a hand size, chop it all up, simmer it with the lid on for 20 minutes till it turns yellow, pour it into bath water, and soak in it. Your skin will turn all hot pinky, and it'll pulls out the aches and the pains. It is such a wintertime herb. And then of course you can also drink it, good for digestion, but it heats you up. It heats you up on the inside, so if you're cold, that's when you want to use the ginger. The way I do it is bring 2 cups of water to a boil, and I add a half a teaspoon, this is for a ginger drink. Add a half a teaspoon of ground turmeric, a half a teaspoon of chopped fresh ginger root, half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Y'all know what this is already sounding like, chai, right? And then you simmer it for 10 minutes. And then when it's cooled, you can add a little lemon or honey if you want to, or any of the other spice tastes. Okay, now, these are the ones I'm telling you, the wild tea sources. So if I send you the presentation or you see it on there, I'm not going to read all of those out, but these are wild, unless you need me to read them. Do you need me to read them for anything?
We'll put this below the
leaves for
video.
tea. So the last thing we have here is stevia. How many of you have grown stevia?
I tried.
Good, good, okay, good. And try is it because it doesn't go through the winter,
Right.
and because it's kind of hard to not use it all up, because you keep cutting it and getting the leaves and getting the leaves. And it's not a really long-lived herb anyway, so you didn't really fail. You got there. I took one to, some of you have heard the story, I took one to a student I was tutoring because I wanted him to introduce him to it. He kept plucking the leaves while we were studying. By the time we finished, they were all gone. He ate the whole plant. So, I don't know if he planted it at home or not. But it is a natural sweetener. Depending upon what source you read, it's either 50 to 100 times sweeter than sugar. And you'll know when you just taste a little leaf. And it gave the sugar industry quite a stir, oh gosh, decades ago when it was first brought onto the market. Oh, no, you don't, they said, and took it right back off. And so when it came back, it was made to look like sugar, only really expensive. So which you're gonna choose now? The one you've been using all the time? Or the really expensive one? Now it went back to the shelves, and now you can actually find it blended with other natural sweeteners, and you can find it even in its real green form sometimes. So it's
I mixed, I'm sorry, I mixed it, well, we bought it and it was clearance, but the monk fruit and stevia, and that is really good.
It is.
But you don't want to put very much in there.
You're right, very, very little, and monk fruit, ooh, I love monk fruit. I think that is the end, tinkering with teas. Oh, I have a little bit more, but yes.
On the stevia?
Yes.
How do you use it?
How do you use the stevia?
Yeah, do you
you
just...
can either use it fresh, like you can just clip it fresh and mix it into your tea as an infusion. You can have it dried and crumble it and sprinkle it in and give it time to be wet enough like that and stir it in. It's never going to dissolve in those forms like sugar or date palm sugar will. So it'll still be there visible. Those are the ways that I use it. Does anybody else have a way to use it?
I have a question. I mean, I use stevia in my tea, but I buy it in the bottle. It's liquid.
Yeah.
You know, you little dropper full. And I've
so you
noticed.
could hold that thought. You could also make a stevia tincture.
That's what I was thinking.
Different, you can make a stevia tincture, and the alcohol will flow it out. Yeah.
That's what I was wondering what that was, if it was a tincture.
It might be. Is it in glucose? I hope not. I don't know what it's in.
I don't know. I'll have to look, because I've noticed though, as it gets older, and it has to be refrigerated, really, it has a tendency to get cloudy and white, and it still sweetens. So I still am using it.
Yeah, it's like it's.
But I'm wondering should I stop using it?
Yeah.
You know,
it's just like with the stevia and the monk fruit. I think you can't really find stevia on the market these days by itself. You used to could, or you can buy it from a an herbal company that sells it straight. But in terms of marketing, I think it's always blended.
So you don't think you could just take stevia, let's say you could grow it, and put it into a glass jar and put it in the refrigerator,
You
and it
could.
would sweeten your
It's a
tea?
great idea. You could just have a stevia infusion going, but be sure to take after 3 days, take all the leaves out.
Right.
So that would, it's a great idea.
Okay.
Brilliant idea, actually.
All I need's a plant.
Make a stevia, yeah, keep it for a while. It's a great idea. Yeah,
Okay, so to go back to the tincture,
yes.
can you do, would you put fresh leaves in a jar or dried leaves and add vodka? And can you also switch that out with vinegar?
Those are all good questions. It's a long answer. Vinegar is a weak alcohol and it does make a tincture. It takes a longer time. It doesn't extract as much. To know what herb is able to be made into a tincture, it's usually roots and bark. So I'm gonna do some homework on stevia because not all leaves extract into alcohol. So that's the thing that we have to discover is if they'll extract into alcohol.
Okay.
I cheated. I looked it up.
Oh, good. Hey, thank you. All right.
Stevia has the volatile oils in it, so then
Oh.
yes, you want the alcohol to pull out
Pull
those
it out.
constituents.
Great.
You
Yay.
can do both
Thank you
water
very
and,
much.
yeah.
Okay, good. All right, go Google. Or whichever one you use. All right, tinkering with teas here. Simmer ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, cloves, and nutmeg. And then pour it over rooibos tea, and then you'll have chai rooibos tea. Simmer rose hips and orange peel for 5 to 8 minutes, and then pour over lemongrass and spearmint and steep. So you do your little bit of boiling, and then you pour it over that steep. Yummy. Fresh basil and mint, bruise the leaves before you pour the water on them. And chamomile, ginger, honey, or stevia and lemon. Another one of my favorite combinations. Okay, so now comes the part where you have to hear that I'm not a medical doctor and I can't dispense all this information about what's good for you or not, other than my own personal experience. So everything today is educational and has come from, truly, my own personal experience living off grid for 11 years in the hill country with my 3 children. And husband. And so we grew a lot of these. I know which ones go through the winter, which ones don't, and it's been a real pleasure being with you here today. So thank you so much for inviting
Thank
me.
you. All right, so do we,
Are there any other
I
questions?
think Deb is taking over here.
Yes, it's time for our door prizes.
And here, these are also going to be added to your door prizes. These are, and there's 6 of these. Oh, look at you. That's because it have to pull the, well, we'll just save you. I harvested these morning. These have been 2 years in my yard, so they're accustomed to our weather. And this is chocolate mint. All of this is chocolate mint, which to me personally smells like turpentine. But if you want a mint that all is acclimated and works and maybe it'll taste better to you. 3 are planted because they came up when I was planting the garden. And the rest I've cut back because freezes are coming. And so we have 1, 2, 3. We have 5. I think 5 of that and 3 of those. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If anybody wants any.
Okay, good. I'm gonna go, oh, sorry.
Here,
I'm gonna
here,
go over
right there
here
if you want.
and I'm going to try to do this gracefully. Okay, so we have, if you have your ticket with you, you will look for it. And the first one is, I'll start with 641, so this one's 367. The last 3 numbers are 3, 6. Oh, very good. So you're gonna find some herbal tea, some Texas honey, and a little ornament, a tea ornament. Okay. The next one is 368. That would be me.
Oh,
That's
exciting.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. The next one is 364. Oh,
Yay.
very good. So, enjoy. There are 3 different types of herbal teas, so I don't know who got what, but right. And now we'll just go ahead and. Oh, that is so precious. 305. 305. 305. Oh, very good. Okay. Sally, I'm gonna give you one of the chocolate
You
mints.
know what, you better give her 2 of them.
Okay.
This one looks sad, but it will make it. And then, yeah, that one, you gotta run right hand.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cause these look the saddest, but they will make it. They're right out of the garden. Okay. And you know how it is in transplanting. Here, you have to do that, okay? So you can put that in water when you get home. Yeah, in turpentine, yeah. I have some yummy turpentine. Chocolate mint.
370.
Oh, I got it.
Yes.
There you go. Enjoy your chocolate mint. Okay, and now we have we have 6 little tubes. Very good. 360. 360. Oh, good. There you go, Miss Benson. Oh, that's a good way to make those tubes.
So you
Okay.
pull
We have.
the bottom leaves off and leave this much on, and you can make it shorter. Or you can try it
And
like
let
that,
it
but root, yeah, let it root. Yeah, so these, you guys have to take inside through the winter.
366. 366.
That's me.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Is that what these are, or chocolate mint?
Chocolate mint, that's what, yeah.
You can't smell so good.
369.
Area.
369.
Oh, that's
Okay.
Do the dairy? No, it's inside the yard, they can't,
Yeah. So those are
but
different.
they would.
304. Oh, very good. And let's see. Oh, we have 2 more. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anything the deer won't eat?
Sage.
No.
They won't eat
They
sage.
don't eat the,
Rosemary?
Yeah, they don't bother.
Cowpen daisies, they don't eat those, got lots of them.
Oh, really?
it's a sage, but it's not a real sage. It blooms the yellow and puts out those.
The Russian sage.
Yeah.
Well, Russian sage, that's one they won't eat, but this other one, you squeeze it and it smells.
Thistle, I wish they'd eat thistle.
I'll
Really?
take it. I have it everywhere. They don't touch it. It's
Pyrillus?
beautiful. No, it's a sage that's not a sage that has sage in its name, and it does yellow flowers up on a stalk. That keeps doing yellow flowers up on a stalk.
Oh.
Nolan.
I've
you
seen
guys
one with
know that.
purple, not yellow.
Yeah,
Purple flowers.
no, this is I'll think of it.
Tonight while you're
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
Okay.
Put it
Oh,
in
she's drinking her tea.
380. Oh, there you go. And the last one. 361. 361. There you go.
We're bribing them.
Can I sneak a little commercial in?
Yes.
It's not a commercial, really. I just want to tell you guys about these things. Just in case you don't know, I'm sure you all know, you can get more onions out of an onion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is, of course, just the end of an onion that's been put in water. It's now rooting. It has 3 shoots. Now I just take and separate these 3 from each other and plant them, and they will grow another full onion. That's one thing. 2, if you like persimmons and you don't know how to get them ripe, you put it in a container with an apple. And the gases from the apple, as long as it's airtight, the gases from the apple ripen it in 24 to 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so they have these at Costco. They're like $5.96 for a bag of them, which is a huge good deal, but not if you don't know how to ripen them. And I know I bought the pecans because I was going to tell you something about pecans, but I don't remember what it is right now, so oh well.
Oh well. Thank y'all very, very much for coming.
Thank you. November the 16th. 16th, put it on your calendar, and learn about succulents and how to
We're gonna
do those, yeah.
plant and decorate.
Plant and decorate, you'll get to taste them.
And then you
Jerry,
All the book I wrote has been three times in the sound print, so it's still in my computer.
I don't think it smells like, I don't think it smells
Y'all
like.
didn't hear what Jerry was saying, is if you have a favorite container that you'd like to put succulent in, bring that container with you. Or any kind of special rock or stone or anything like that, bring that with you and they'll help you.
We have a number of things, but we don't have any.
It's gonna be the same time.
Oh,
well, exactly. Because the community garage sale is we're gonna set up a booth.
Necessary but unnecessary.
I mean, 10 years. Right now, we're just here for 11.
And so I needed that. And I Yeah, the ones with the.
So she